So, does Prince Harry regret moving to America, or is he over living in America? That's the question that a lot of people are asking and hinting at for a couple of different reasons. One is because he apparently apologized to Canada for wearing the LA Dodgers hat at a recent game 4 of the World Series when the Dodgers were playing the Blue Jays from Canada. Harry and his wife, Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, were invited by one of the owners of the Dodgers to sit in the dugout or something like that. And was given a cap, like his wife was also given the same cap, he says. And he thought it was the polite thing to do to put the hat on. But there was all this backlash and blowback, and he was pre-scheduled to be in Canada for Remembrance Day, just days after wearing the hat. And during his appearance in Canada for Remembrance Day, he apparently apologized to Canada, and he said that he wore the hat under duress, that it was a mistake, etc., and that he, go Blue Jays, and he's a Blue Jays fan. And he also said that he probably can't go back to LA after this, etc., etc. And so there was that. And then there was another thing that happened, I think, with an essay he wrote where he said he currently lives in the, no, he said something like, I may currently, emphasis on the word currently, live in the US at this time, but I will always be, a British man who, cares for the soldiers and servicemen and women in Britain and so on and so forth, which, I mean, obviously the man is the founder of the Invictus Games, which seeks to, you know, venerate, if you will, servicemen and women in England and around the world. And so if he says that he will always be one of them, I'm not quite so sure why everybody is so up in arms about it. But I think one of the, according to Brian over at Sussex Squad Family TV, one of the so-called carnival of so-called experts basically emphasized the word currently, that Harry said he's currently living in the US. And, he said that that is the operative word, the key word there is currently. And so that coupled with, the Blue Jays, hat gate, if you will, I think is what Harry calls it. A lot of people are now speculating that Harry is, having second thoughts about being in the US, and he's not so enamored with it anymore. And, there's trouble in paradise and blah, 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 blah. And so, what do I think? Well, I think a lot of Americans have been moving out of the United States recently, right? And so if Harry is looking at the whole thing and thinking to himself, oh my God, I don't agree with a lot of things that's going on and I want to leave. I mean, would I be like profoundly shocked? No, I would not be profoundly shocked. I think that, frankly, if Harry and Meghan were in a different situation with the royal family, I think in the last year or so they would have relocated to the UK probably for at least 4 years, because it's no secret that they don't agree with the political scene. I mean, they haven't said so recently in public, but I think we all know where they stand politically, and I think if he's not so enamored with life in America right now, I wouldn't be profoundly shocked, right? But I think the press is trying to spin it that it's about Reagan, and especially when he said he's under duress, and whose duress is he under? Of course, they're going to say it's Meghan. Meghan is forcing him to do something. Wear a hat that he doesn't want to wear, be in a place he doesn't want to be in, things like that. And I obviously don't agree with that. I'm sure that, Meghan does have an influence on her husband, and her husband has an influence on her. I mean, they're married. That's what marriage is. They influence each other. But I don't think that Meghan forced him to wear the hat. And even if she tried to, if he really didn't want to wear it, he wouldn't have worn it. Now, do I think that he made it even worse by saying that he was under duress, by saying that, he's really a Blue Jays fan and so on? I think potentially. I think maybe, I mean, look, this man is a public figure, and it's hard to be a public figure, and you put your foot in your mouth, you get canceled in 2 seconds, and it's a tightrope. He lives in Los Angeles, and he has been living in Los Angeles for at least 5 years, and he has said that Los Angeles is home. Years ago, he said, at least for the time being. Now he's saying currently. He owes some loyalty to Los Angeles, I think, at this point, right? And so if he goes to Canada and he says, well, he's really a Canadian, he doesn't live in Canada. I understand that, he's a British royal, and, Canada is part of the Commonwealth. And so he has to be loyal to Canada. And so to some extent, I mean, if there is backlash because, I mean, I hope not, but if there's some backlash where, people are going to start saying, oh, well, wait a minute, you live in Los Angeles, so how dare you go to Canada and say that you are not a Dodgers fan, you're really a Blue Jays fan. They could twist this to the ends of the earth either way you twist this. And so maybe it would have been better if he hadn't said anything. But look, Harry is Harry. He's going to say what he's going to say, and he'll get away with it because people generally love him.